Hi there, Ari family. Thank you, Rivka, for organising this conference. For those that don't know me, I'm Kate Breslaw from An Integrated Life, and I'm going to be doing some cooking with you today. So let's just jump straight into it. We're going to be starting with the soup. This is a soup that I'm kind of famous for. I vary it over the years. I'm going to teach you the basic way that I do it. So I've already got my saucepan. It's filled with at the moment, about 1/3 of water. Now, the way that I do this, not always, but this time, and there's something special about it, is leaving the vegetables whole. When I leave them whole, then I feel like I get more of the taste of each vegetable. So first we're going to do the vegetables, then we're going to work out which herbs we're going to do. So we are just going to, in fact, just to cook it a little bit quicker, we're going to cut kohlrabi. They're already peeled. We're cutting them in half. You could leave them whole. It takes a little bit longer. I've got a few onions here, small ones, so we're just throwing them in. Fell on the floor. We'll give it a little bit of a wipe. Not expecting guests. There we go. I'm excited about this soup. We've got broccoli that I've just cut from the garden. In fact, I might put that in a little bit later. Now, one of the tricks of this soup is I also put in sweet potato in big chunks. And when they are cooked, I actually take the chunks out and I mash them. And then I put them back in, and it gives the soup a much creamier taste rather than like water. Okay, so we've got the sweet potato. I'm very excited about this soup. We've also got some parsley root. Again, small pieces. Was that the onion that fell on the floor? That's okay. I don't do that when I've got guests coming. The parsnip I'm also going to add into this. I've got some red lentils here. I wash them really well because I find that then you don't have to scoop off all the gooey stuff after. So let's put that in. There we go. I've got here grated turmeric. About 2 pieces. I have got a bit of grated lime and a bit of, like 1 slice of lime cut up in small pieces. We add that in, there we go. And we are going to add in, for now I'll chop up the broccoli in a little bit, hawaj. No idea what it is in English. It says in English cardamom for soup. It's a mixture of various spices, but it's great. So let's just throw in some of that. And a little bit of salt. Oops. And we're going to put it on to cook. So I definitely am going to need a little bit more water. I have some I prepared here earlier. Where are all the foraged herbs, I hear you asking yourselves? Okay, we're going to put this on the gas. Can you see me? I'm here. I've got this gas out here. And that's it for the moment. Okay, I'll leave it on high. I'm going to add the broccoli when some of the veg are a little bit more cooked. But let's come now to where are the herbs? Okay, we have here a beautiful bowl of nettles. I've actually washed these and prepared them earlier, but I'm going to show you. So I've gone out into the forest. And I've just taken the top part of the nettles. If you don't like the sting, I like the sting, urtication, you know, gets rid of that stagnation, gets you a bit alive. But if you don't like the sting, at the very base of the root, of the stem, sorry, just above the ground, there's about 1 inch with no hairs. And it's the hairs that give the sting. So you could take them from there, but as the season goes, I really like them to grow, so I just take the tops. If you don't like the sting, get a pair of gloves. For the soup, I'll sort of take the heads about that much. I'll pull off any of the other leaves and they'll be ready straight in the soup. Okay, so that's how we do the nettles. I'm going to add them in a little bit later. So we're going to let the veg start cooking. I'm going to add the broccoli and then I'm going to add the nettles. And that's more or less how we're going to use the nettles in this soup. Okay, so we're going to leave that cooking for a little bit and I'll come back in a minute or 2 or 5 and we are going to add the nettles and the broccoli. I'm not strictly vegan, contrary to popular belief. I do eat all kinds of things, but I do eat a mainly vegan diet, and I learned and I taught when I used to do food workshops that the easiest way to do it is to be prepared. So in my freezer I have already cooked different kinds of legumes. These are black lentils. I have black lentils, azuki beans, chickpeas, and if you just cook a big batch, it makes it so much easier when you want to make something quickly. You just take one out, let it defrost, and you can use them. Now we are going to make one of my black lentil and walnut pate. A pate, a dip. You can eat it with veggies. You can eat it as a spread. You can keep it much thicker and use it and make it into burgers. You can make it thinner and you can actually use it as a sauce on pasta. And it also freezes. So this has come out the freezer, so I'm not going to refreeze the pate. You can do, maybe you lose a little bit of the goodness of the lentils by refreezing them. But in general, if I've made a big pot and I want pates in the freezer, I'll actually make it before I've frozen them. So if you take a 500-gram bag of black lentils, this was 300 grams, so you get about 3 of these. And it's really, really very simple. So we are simply going to add the black lentils. And I've already fried, I did about 2 large onions for this amount. Literally fry them till a bit golden brown. I fry them in olive oil. And we are going to need a cup of walnuts, which I don't have a cup here, so we'll just do a cup's worth. Okay, and we're going to give it a sprinkle of salt, not too much, and we're going to give it a little blend. I hear you asking, where are the herbs? What foraged herbs is she using? Let's get the base done first, and then we're going to add in foraged herbs. Okay, again, everything that I do is to taste. So you can try it yourselves, a little bit more salt, a little bit less salt, more nuts, less nuts. Now, chickweed. Here, amongst all this vegetation growing, we have chickweed. How can we recognize chickweed? So first we study the shape of the leaves. You have hair. If you look very, very closely, I'll try and get a photo of that. Can you see those hairs on the stem? And when you break the stem, there's a string inside. Can you see this string inside here? So those are a couple of ways to identify chickweed. We're going to gather some. Got a nice selection here. and we're going to use it in some food. I've been out in the garden over here and I've picked a nice amount of chickweed this morning. I am not going to use all of this, but let's say I am going to use a nice big handful. Now what you do want to do if you're grabbing handfuls of chickweed from the garden is do just give it a little sort through first to make sure you've not picked up any pieces of grass, any other little things. There you go, can you see now? I'm not sure what that is, but I definitely don't want it in my walnut and lentil pate. Okay, so we've got a nice amount of chickweed here. I'm just going to break it up a little bit. Let's put this in a mixer and give it another couple of blends. Let's have a look how we're doing. Let's give it another one or two so that it's nicely blended. And again, if you like pates more crunchy, you can blend the nuts slightly less. Let me have a little taste here. It's delicious, it's divine. I'm going to give it another couple of blends. And we have the pate, let's show you. And we're going to do something nice with it. Let's make it look pretty for when we serve it. So we're going to come back to that. Let's come back to the soup. Okay, the soup's starting to boil. I've given it a little bit of a stir. All the veggies are still very hard. So we're just going to cover that now for a little bit. I'm going to let them cook till they're a little bit soft. And then I'm going to start adding the nettles and the broccoli. What else is on the menu today? And the third thing we're going to cook together today, giant fennel. I've never cooked it before, I've never used it before, I've never foraged it before. Let's experiment together. What could go wrong, right? First I learnt that with giant fennel you want to forage them when it's still closed, okay? Now I have seen photos of people chopping up big tops of them, which is a shame because then you're not leaving anything else to flower, seed and reproduce for the following year. So I went round a few different plants and I picked them, and if you can see in here, as I peel them, I'm going to take out these little flower heads. They look a bit like very small cauliflower pieces. Can you see that? I've already started doing it. I've got some in a bowl here. Giant fennel, to the untrained eye, when you're out in the forest, it does look a bit like regular fennel, but if you look closely, the leaves, the fennel parts, like they're more branched out, they're more open. And the main way of obviously telling is if there's no smell. Can you see at the ends here? And if it was the leaves growing out, absolutely no smell, no fennel smell at all. So that you definitely don't want to eat. When we're peeling them, we want to be very careful to only take the head. We don't want any leaves at all. So I'm going to prepare them and open them all ready. And let's see how we're going to cook them. Okay, we're back with the soup. I turned it down low. It's been cooking, I guess, 20 minutes, half an hour. And the veggies, they're not completely soft, but they are soft enough for me that I'm now going to start adding, I'm going to add the broccoli here. And of course, we're going to add the nettles. Now, remember what I said earlier, if the sting bothers you, use gloves. Do not be scared of nettles. Where does the sting come from? It comes from the hairs. So for anyone asking what happens, how do we eat it? Once you flatten the hairs, which could be done simply by folding them over, flattening, pushing, pressing down really tight like this, and then eating. But once they're cooked, or if you're putting them in your smoothies, then the hairs just disappear. So I'm going to start putting them in. There's not a lot of room in my saucepan right now because the sweet potatoes are still big chunks. So as soon as they're cooked and I take them out to mash, then there'll be more space. So maybe I'll put half of these in now and I'll come back to it shortly. Just to show you here, some of the nettles are already starting to go to seed. Now in my soup, I'm still going to get the flavour, I'm still going to get a fair amount of the goodness, and I like these little, they're sort of burgundy, browny seeds. If you want to use your nettles for tinctures, drying, you really do want to catch them before they start flowering. And there'll still be plenty around depending on where you are. But because I knew it was for soup, there were a couple that had started flowering. I'm not too worried about it. So there we go. As soon as they get mixed down into the soup, making sure they get a good stir, the hairs get flattened, and you're just left with the yummy taste of nettles, which I really like. So people ask, how do you cook nettles? The same way you'd cook any other green leaf, whether you want to make burgers out of them, stir fries. The taste, it's kind of like seaweedy almost. I just love it. So there we go. It's still pretty full, so I'm going to add a little bit more and then I'll put the lid back on and I'll come back and add more afterwards. So remember, you just break them off and throw them in. We're coming back to finish the soup. So sticking a fork, knife into the sweet potatoes. They are definitely soft enough to mash, so I'm going to take all of those out. We're going to mash them, put them back, there'll be more room, and we're going to put in the rest of the nettles. Okay, I've taken out all the sweet potatoes from the soup. We'll just make it a bit easier. We'll cut them up a little bit first. And then we're just going to mash them. We're going to mash them. I love doing this in my soups. It makes them so much creamier, okay? So mashing them all up, all mashed up there. Wonderful. And not so easy for you all to see. Let's hold it up. So now there's also a lot more room in the pot, so I can add the sweet potato back in. And it's going to make the soup much creamier. There we go. Lick the bowl later. And of course we've now got the rest of room to put the rest of the nettles in. So we're going to give that a nice stir to mix up all the mashed sweet potato with all the, oh, what a combination of colours, the green of the nettles combined with the orange. I'll show you a close-up, but first that's not very nice. Let's just put the rest of these nettles in. Quite a lot today. Nah, I don't need all of them. I'll keep some for some tea. There we go, pushing them down. Remember, as soon as they're all mixed in, the hairs flatten and there's absolutely no sting. Do not be scared to use nettles. And we know, we haven't really talked at all. Oh, it's a bit dark, can you see me? We haven't really talked at all about the benefits of eating nettles. I'm sure in some of the foraging walks that you're going to do with people during this wonderful conference, you will hear nettles, a powerhouse, superfood, minerals, vitamins, iron, easily absorbable iron as well. Everything's in nettles. Okay, so definitely a plant that you want to eat as much as you can. So there we go. Let's see if I can hold up and show you, and then I'm just going to leave it. And if you remember, I cooked, let's see, without burning myself. Let's see if I can hold this up for you. Look at that incredible, beautiful soup. Now, as you remember, I kept the veggies whole. Big pieces of veggies, whole or halves. Can we see? Size half a kalawabi. When you serve it with guests, you can either cut it up in the bowl for them. It's going to be soft. They can use their spoon. However you choose to do it, you might decide you want to cut the veggies up smaller. I just like leaving them because I really feel I taste each individual veg so much more. And that is basically the soup. You can vary the green leaves you use. You could vary the veg, the root veg you use. Anything and everything that takes your fancy, whatever you feel. One thing that's really important to add, how I eat it. We'll keep that and we'll eat together and you'll see. Okay, our soup is cooked. I did add the rest of those nettles in the end, so it's got a lovely large amount of nettles. And we've got the giant fennel here. So, are you ready to experiment together? Okay, little bit of olive oil. Now, I did a bit of Googling to learn how people use them, how people cook them. There were a number of different recipes. Everybody described them as some kind of delicacy. I just want to show you, I've been going around and making sure I take off, can you see, all these extra little leaves, if they manage to sneak in, because I don't know when it said no leaves, whether people are talking about those as well. So, with the various different recipes that I saw online, I'm keeping it simple. This is something I have never tasted before, and I want to get the taste. I want to feel and taste what the taste is. So we're putting them here. So I'm literally just going to cook them in olive oil, and I'll probably just add a little bit of salt afterwards. Don't forget, we're experimenting. So let's give it a little stir. Might add a little bit more oil actually. There we go. I'm very curious. Are you excited? I'm excited. I've never eaten these before. I'm just going to leave them there, let them go a little bit brown. Is the gas a bit high? And I'm just going to leave these cooking a little bit. Having never cooked them, how does one know that they're even cooked? So we're just going to make sure if they get a little bit overcooked this time, that's okay. Because all I know is that they need to be cooked well. So I'm going to leave them there for a couple of minutes. This is very exciting. I'm very excited to be experimenting with you. I'm going to add a touch of salt to them. A little bit for the garden. Let's give it another stir. Like I said, I'm going to leave them a little bit longer. If I was cooking cauliflower or broccoli, I still like it to have that little crunch to it. I don't like to overcook them too much. Like I say, this is an experiment. First time, we're going to make sure they are very, very well cooked. And from there, if we like the taste, we can continue an experiment. So some of them are starting to get a little bit brown. Shall we try it together and see? So I've just gone in and grabbed a bottle of soy sauce. After tasting one, I decided I'd like a little bit of soy sauce with them as well. There we go, giving them a nice stir. They're ready to be served up. I think it's time to eat. So here we are, a feast. We have the bowl of soup, which normally I would eat breakfast, lunch, dinner. And as you can see, we've got the big pieces here. So you really get the full taste of the kohlrabi. We've got the big pieces of the parsley root, and everything else has kind of been more mushed up. Remember, you can vary the root vegetables, whichever you want. You can vary the legumes, you can vary the green leaves. Excuse me. And what I also do when I serve it, as you saw when we made it, it was very simple. There wasn't a lot of flavoring. So then I can add different things as I start to eat it, different days, different flavors. I like to add in a teaspoon of coconut oil sometimes. Sometimes I'll give an extra squeeze of lime. And today I actually also added chili, because as you can see, hat still a little bit cold, so to get me warmed up. So that's the soup. I'm going to enjoy that in a minute. And we have here, we have the giant fennel. I never told you exactly what I thought of them. I was expecting something wow, wow, wow. It's got a gentle taste. I think I'd probably use other flavorings or herbs if I cooked it again. Definitely interesting. We've got the walnut and black lentil pate, and as you can see, I've just cut up some veg. You can have it as a dip, you could spread it on toast. And we've also got lovely little wild garlic flowers to decorate, sitting on a bed of chickweed. So, first of all, let's give thanks to the wonderful, wonderful plants that grow around us that provide us with all the nutrients we could want. Thank you, Rivka, for putting the show together and giving me the opportunity to share how to use foraged foods. So just a quick recap. We've cooked giant fennel. Remember, you can't use the leaves the way you would normal fennel. You can't use any part of it except for the little flower heads when they're in the bud before it's opened. Before the flower heads have grown, how can you even tell it's not fennel? Because it doesn't have a smell, okay? We've used the nettles and we used the chickweed. So have fun with your foraged foods, experiment, enjoy it. Bon appetit. I'm going to start eating. Huge feast here for me. I'm Kate Breslaw from An Integrated Life, Forager and Herbalist, EFT practitioner, and highly sensitive therapist and advocate. Would love to see you sometime in the forest with me on a foraging fun masterclass, perhaps a one-day retreat. See you soon.